I want to make sure you have the best build possible going into Season 1. That's why I've spent the last several days refining this build to make sure you guys get the strongest build available. I've got an optimized skill tree, absolutely perfected Paragon boards, and well, just see for yourself. I just have a casual 25,000 HP.
Nice.
We're changing our Keystone passive. We're taking Fortify out of the build. Yes, I said it.
We're taking Fortify out of the build.
I'll tell you more about that later in the video. I'm giving this build a rating of 9 wolf pups out of 10.
I'm too weak. Oh, don't kill me.
This may be the best solo build in the game. It's extremely good in PvP, very good single target for bosses, and great when it comes to clearing nightmare dungeons. Not to mention one of the most satisfying builds to play. A little bonus tip, try this build on controller. Because we're able to basic attack while we move, it can make the gameplay feel smoother. Also, it could save you from carpal tunnel. For the skills we're going to be using, we've got our Blood Howl for the attack speed and healing, not to mention the vigilance procs. Our good old friend Hurricane for damage reduction, as well as damage. We've got Trample for its interaction with our new Keystone passive, not to mention more mobility, Unstoppable, and CC. We've got our Grizzly Rage ultimate. This thing has everything. It gives us damage reduction, healing, more damage, more critical damage, more mobility. We've got Debilitating Roar for more survivability. And finally, the skill that makes the whole build work, the Claw. With our Greatstaff of the Crone and our amazing attack speed, we rip through enemies proccing overcharged constantly, which is why we see so many damage numbers in the build. You're not going to see billions of damage in one hit, but this build definitely pumps. On most difficulties under 70, depending on your gear, you could probably just run through an entire dungeon holding down your left click if you wanted to. I'm super excited to try the new Malignant Gem that causes lightning damage to arc between enemies. This in conjunction with overcharge is going to be insane. Now we have a lot to cover for the build, but make sure you stay till the end, because not only is this going to be useful for Stormclaw builds, but you might learn a thing or two about your own build. Not to mention I leave a little gift for my viewers towards the end of the video. Speaking of gifts, my first sponsor ever! Bloodline Heroes of Lithas. This game's free to download, and you can use my QR code or the link in the description below. That will unlock a special starter pack worth $20. You are not prepared for this truly unique hero collector fantasy RPG. This is gacha gameplay like you've never seen before. It has an awesome mechanic that allows you to breed your heroes together in order to make interesting combinations. They release new bloodlines every couple of weeks, like these goat folk stone throwers, which come with unique abilities for each gender. The customization options are endless because you can marry 2 champions together to create hybrids. There are over 1,000 combinations. The art in this game is fantastic, but don't take my word for it, look at this cutie. Oh my god. When you breed 2 champions together, the hybrid inherits not only the abilities, but also the look of its parents. By earning points in the seasonal Guild Wars PvP, you can obtain uniquely designed hybrid champions called Bloodcraft Legends. You can switch the genders of your companions at any time, build your own kingdom and economy, and enjoy beautiful scenes and an interesting storyline. Download the game now for free on both Android and iOS. Use my link in the description or scan my QR code showing on the screen. Don't forget, you'll get the special starter pack worth $20. Also, the first 30 players to leave their in-game account ID and username in the pinned comment below will receive a free Legendary Female Orc Champion. So why no Fortify? Because from watching my VODs, I was able to see that our Fortify was flickering on and off. That's because our Fortify has to be equal or higher than our current health. Because we're healing the entire time from Masochistic, we almost always have more health than we do Fortify. That's what causes the strobing effect we see. That means we're not gaining the damage bonus from our glyph, as well as any of the damage reduction while fortified on our gear, which is actually good news for us because that means we can swap these stats out for useful ones. For our skill tree, we're maxing out Storm Strike, Enhanced, and Wild, and we're maxing out Claw and taking Enhanced and Wild. Under our core skills, we're maxing out the passives Predatory Instinct and Digitigrade Gate. For our defensive skills, we're taking 1 point in Blood Howl, as well as Enhanced and Preserving. We're also taking 1 point in Debilitating Roar. For our passives here, we'll take 1 point in Ancestral Fortitude, and we'll max out Vigilance. As always, we skip the Companion tree. Under our Wrath skills, we'll be taking 1 point in Hurricane, Enhanced, and Savage. We're also taking 1 point in Trample. For our passives here, we're maxing out Elemental Exposure, Endless Tempest, Bad Omen, Electric Shock, and Envenom. We'll also be taking 1 point in Neurotoxin, and 1 point in Toxic Claws. Our ultimate skill is Grizzly Rage, and we'll be taking both additional points, Prime Grizzly Rage, and Supreme Grizzly Rage. For our passives, we're maxing out Defiance and Natural Disaster. Finally, for our Keystone passive, we're going to be taking Bestial Rampage. Because we use a Werebear skill before we go into our ultimate, our Bestial Rampage is giving us 30% damage and 25% attack speed for almost the entire duration. This makes it a far better choice than all the other options. After testing, I personally prefer Trample because I like the 1-2 combo of trampling, then debilitating Roar in order to close the gap and weaken the enemies before I get in close. Though Trample's not technically necessary because you can activate your Keystone passive just by using debilitating Roar. So if you'd prefer, feel free to take Cyclone Armor instead. And if you do, you could take Ghostwalker off of your boots and use Stormshifters aspect instead for a little bit of additional damage. For our Paragon boards, we'll start with Tenacity, move up and grab Exploit as our glyph, move back down and grab Prime, up again for Impel. We'll take Thunderstruck as our first board, where we'll go to the right first and grab Hubris, then up for Fang and Claw, up and left for Deluge, up and left again for Thunderstruck, and one more time for Tempest. Off to the right we have Lightning Resilience, but feel free to pick this up later if you're not max level yet. To the right of our glyph, we have Stormcaller. We'll grab Inner Beast as our next board, where we'll grab Nimble, and Shapeshifter on our way to our glyph, where we'll get Territorial. After that, we'll be grabbing Determination to the right, Tenacity above that, and Havoc above that. Our next board is Constricting Tendrils, where we'll be grabbing our glyph, Earth and Sky. To the left of that, we're grabbing Courage, and above that, we're grabbing Nature's Will. Above our Inner Beast board, we're grabbing Ancestral Guidance, where we'll be hitting Spiritual Power, Resolve, and our Werewolf glyph. On our way to the left, we're going to grab Harmony, and then our final board, Heightened Malice. Here we'll be grabbing Poison Resilience, and the legendary node, Heightened Malice. For our Spirit Boons, we're grabbing Wariness, Swooping Attacks, Calamity, and we're bonding with our Serpent, so that we can grab Masochistic and Calm Before the Storm. This build absolutely requires the Greatstaff of the Crone. It's also ideal to have Tempest Roar, but technically, if you're not going above tier 70, it doesn't really matter. As long as you have that Greatstaff, you'll be alright. The most important things to look for when statting your gear are maximum health, damage reduction, and armor when it comes to defensive stats, then attack speed, critical hit chance, and vulnerable damage when it comes to your offensive stats. Obviously, critical damage is nice, but we get a lot of it from our ultimate, so it's not as much of a priority as the others. But I would gladly take an amulet that has +3 to Envenom on it. With this build, we shouldn't need any all stats on our gear outside of what you already get from Tempest Roar. We'll be able to hit all of the important bonuses on our rare glyphs in our Paragon board, just from the attributes we get on the Paragon board. But for the specific stats we want on every piece of gear, for the chest armor, we want maximum life, total armor, damage reduction from enemies that are poisoned, and another damage reduction stat. Don't forget, we're avoiding damage reduction while fortified. And we'll be using Vigorous Aspect or Aspect of Might. You also have the option of Mad Wolf's Glee on the chest piece, especially if you're farming lower tier dungeons. On the gloves, we want attack speed, critical strike chance, lucky hit, and the preferred fourth stat is lightning critical damage, but I would also accept werewolf critical damage. And we'll be using rapid aspect. On the pants, we want the same stats as the chest, but I would be willing to take a damage reduction while injured if I happen to get that as a rule. And we'll be using aspect of disobedience. On the boots, we want total armor while werewolf, damage reduction while injured, movement speed, and dodge chance. And we'll be using Ghostwalker aspect. On the amulet, we want the ranks of Envenom, total armor while werewolf, cooldown reduction, and another good damage reduction stat. And here we'll be using overcharged aspect. On our rings, we want vulnerable damage, critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, and maximum life. And we'll be using Direwolf's aspect and aspect of the Rampaging Werebeast. Use common sense when you're choosing your items, because sometimes, let's say you have a chest piece that has 20% damage while shapeshifted. That obviously works for us, even if it's not ideal. Another good example would be critical damage on the rings if you couldn't get lucky hit chance. For our gems, we're using Emerald on the weapon, Ruby on the armor, and Skulls on the jewelry. When Season 1 comes, the skulls will be replaced by Malignant Gems. And that's the build. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to join my Discord and ask me personally. You can also leave comments below and I'll try and get to them. This was by far the most work I've put into a video, and altogether it was several days of work. So if you like the content, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Now, I would say I'm going to go take a break, but I'm actually about to go live on Twitch, so I'll see you there. Daddy Druid out.
Claw, the 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 claw.